Good morning and welcome to Rose Red Homestead. Thank you so much for joining us. We focus here on self-reliance, food security, and emergency preparedness. And today we have something that is going to be fairly quick and easy and will certainly enhance our food security. And this is going to be, we are going to both can and freeze dry meatballs. And so we're going to get started on that in just a moment. Meatballs, of course, are a single ingredient, and a lot of us like to have our whole meal in a jar, but I also like to have individual ingredients so that I can go out there and just to my food storage and go like I'm in a grocery store and select this ingredient, that ingredient, and another one and put them all together for a meal. And that's one thing that meatballs will do for our food storage. And I also have some surprises in mind that we will follow up on in a coming up video. Now, in order to do meatballs, we have to follow the USDA guidelines for ground or minced meat. And we can do that by just doing it in crumbles that we have to pre-cook a little bit so that the outside edges of all the little crumbles are browned so they don't glom together. We can do them in patties so long as we brown the patties on both sides. The meat does not have to be done. Or we can do them in meatballs, which is what we're going to do today. If you have a favorite meatball recipe, this is something that you could also do with your own meatballs. Here is my favorite meatball recipe. I used to make my own meatballs before I was working full-time, and we use meatballs in a few of our recipes, and so once I discovered Costco meatballs, which I think are pretty good, then I quit making meatballs, and now I'm opting for this. These are pre-frozen, and we just keep them in our freezer, and we use a few here and a few there, and they last quite a while. But today, I'm going to put all of these meatballs out on these freeze dryer trays. We did a practice run on these meatballs. I wanted to find out for sure how they would do with freeze drying, and they do fantastic. So that is a package and a half of those meatballs. And they need to be in a single layer. Because these are pre-frozen, we don't have to put these in our regular freezer and freeze them all night. They're going directly right now into the freeze dryer, and so once we do that, we will be right back. So Kelvin is our freeze dryer with the 4 trays of meatballs inside, and anytime we do a video with freeze drying, we know that all of you do not have a freeze dryer, and so we like to counter that with either dehydrating or, in this case, we're going to do canning because we cannot dehydrate meat. Now these meatballs are pre-cooked and they'll be fine canned. If you're going to do your own recipe for meatballs, be sure that you brown them all around. They don't have to be cooked all the way through, but just get them browned all the way around before we put them in the jars. This is the other half of that bag, and so I measured this morning, and each of these will take 12, which is just about the right amount for Jim and me. Okay, now here they are, and so the next thing that I'm going to do is fill them with beef broth. We're going to leave an inch of headspace. I'm going to now debubble everything. Could be that some air is hiding amongst these little meatballs. Boy, they smell good. And then I have a vinegar dampened paper towel that I'm going wiping the rims with, because it is possible that some of the little bit of grease could have gotten on there, and vinegar cuts that grease. And then the lids. And the rings, finger tight. Now, as we look at this, because we're going to be doing pressure canning, one of the things that has to happen in pressure canning is that there needs to be heat transfer from the outside of the jar to the very center of the jar. And heat transfers best through liquids. And so there are liquid pathways all the way around every one of those meatballs, so that the heat can get right to the center of those meatballs and get up into the kill zone to make sure that we don't have any problems with botulism. So today I'm going to be using the Instant Pot Max to do our pressure canning. The Instant Pot Max is the only Instant Pot that I feel is safe, due to my own testing, for pressure canning. It takes enough water to bring the water level up about halfway to the jars. So I have this water ready. I'm not sure it'll be enough. I may have to put more in. And I do. In pressure canning, the jars cannot be all the way covered, and we need to have enough water in there that generates the steam. It is the steam under pressure that allows the temperature to get up to to what it needs to be. I did it backwards. What do you know? All right, I'm going to come around to the front to set it so I don't make any errors. All right, we are going to do canning. So I'm going to press canning. These are pints, and so the time is blinking. I want to turn that time up to 75 minutes. 75 minutes for meat. Whoop. Oh, yeah, it goes to 1 hour, so I need 1 hour and 15 minutes. Okay, so 1 hour and 15 is the same as 75. So everything else is set. My venting is, I'm not going to vent, I'm letting it cool down on its own. Pressure is on low. Oh, goodness, no. I need to move that pressure over to high, to max, because I'm doing pressure canning. So I check all of my windows and it looks good, so I'm ready to start. And there we go. So it's registering 80 degrees, 77 degrees, just on the underside of the lid where the heat probe is. It will take a few minutes for it to get the pressure up to temperature. I'll be watching the temperature reading here. It needs to be up above 240 to make sure that it's in the kill zone, so I'll be monitoring that as I walk back and forth. It will process for 75 minutes, and then it will turn off, and then the cool down starts. That cool down is very important, because part of the cool down, according to my own data, part of the cool down also keeps the food up into the kill zone, because the heat cuts off when it's up there, and as it begins to drop, it still is in that kill zone for just a few minutes, and we need that amount of time to ensure that it has been in the kill zone for long enough. So we'll come back when we're ready to take them out of the canner. The pressure is all the way down. It's been that way for about 5 minutes. I like to leave it about an extra 5 minutes. Sometimes that reduces siphoning. Okay, here's the first one. Looks really good. Oh, well, we've had a little bit of siphoning. And number 4 coming out right now. Four beautiful pints of meatballs, and we will add these to our food storage shelf. We'll come back when the other meatballs are finished in the freeze dryer, so we will see you probably tomorrow. The freeze dryer just barely finished a few minutes ago, so they turned out beautiful, absolutely beautiful. We have 4 trays here of the finished, the freeze-dried meatballs, and we have 4 pints of the canned meatballs. So these jars are 2-quart jars, as I've mentioned before. We really do like to put our freeze-dried food into 2-quart jars. That way I can see what is in there and vacuum seal them, and it works just great. So I'm going to be putting all of the meatballs in these jars, and then I'm going to do this off camera, and we'll come back when they're all in. These are vacuum sealed. I'm just about to do this last one, and I'm using our Weston vacuum sealer. It's fairly new and we really quite like it. It's a powerful one. And then I do have these 2 attachments from Food Saver, and different brand than our vacuum sealer, and we just lucked out that the hose fit. So this goes just over the top like this, and I put it in the lid like the hose, and then press accessory, and it pulls all the air out. Okay, and that's finished. So we got 3 full quart jars and one that's about a third full, all vacuum sealed. And then these are the 4 pints that are canned, pressure canned. So one of the things that I really love about having meatballs on our food storage shelves is the same reason I love having chicken chunks or beef chunks, pork chunks, even canned hamburger, is because they make wonderful base ingredients for so many recipes. And so I could just go shopping out in our food storage and pick out some meatballs and then whatever else I want to go with it, gravy and mashed potatoes or whatever. This was a very successful preserving experiment with these meatballs from Costco. I hope you enjoyed it, and we will see you very soon with a new video.